All right. We're back on. We have audio. We can roll. I'll patch this thing together for those who are going to join us. Here we are, and I'll start sharing. But we're going to move on to the next question because people will find it eventually. I'll patch this together somehow. On episode 732, no audio, sponsored by botsguy.com. We were talking about what are some of the biggest challenges facing youth soccer in America today. You want to a little synopsis of that?
That's almost an easy one. I think it's twofold. One, as mentioned earlier, the emphasis on winning at such a young age is detrimental for development. So kids get not much playing time. They're afraid to make mistakes. A coach coaches a game to win, short term this coming Saturday instead of having a long-term 5-year plan that you're going to stick to as far as the technical curriculum, regardless of win, losses, or draws. So again, the emphasis on winning is in my eyes too big. Let me share that in Europe, these youth coaches at the professional academies like Ajax and whatnot, they don't get hired and fired and compensated based on how their team does. The win-loss records are almost not important whatsoever. It is about how his or her players develop. How many kids does a coach develop in so they're ready for the next level, whether it's to go from the 14-year-olds to the 16-year-olds or the 18-year-olds to the senior team. That's what's important. Not if you win this coming Saturday or if you win a promotion and whatnot. And by the way, if you develop players correctly, I don't know about you, Dave, but I think sooner or later the wins will come automatically. Don't take my word for it. We got my 06 boys right now, 10 points ahead of the number 2, and they're going to the state league. 2012 girls earned 2 promotions in a row. And I'm not saying that because we brag about our wins. I'm just giving it as an example that if you properly develop players and teams, automatically the wins will come. So that's one. And the second detrimental thing, or the biggest challenge in youth soccer in America, is, of course, the pay to play. There are so many talented kids. If you go here to, South Phoenix or the Hispanic communities, there's more talent there than there are in other parts. But those families can unfortunately not fork up $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. And therefore, those kids don't get exposed to professional training and they will never reach their potential. While in Holland, my dad, I think I started playing when I was 5. My dad paid about 100 guilders, it was back then, which is about 50 euros right now. And he was done for the year, no coaching fees. And so in Europe, and South America, it's a people's sport. Everybody can afford it. The biggest talents get good training. Well, unfortunately, and it's actually pretty sad, is that some of the biggest talents in America, and especially in Arizona, cannot afford professional training and therefore miss out. And that also means that that's one of the reasons why the American national team, at least the men, even though they should be a powerhouse, right? Because it's a huge country. It is, 300-something million people, I think. Millions of dollars available in the USSF. But for some reason, they cannot get beyond the round of 16 or the quarterfinals in a World Cup. So why is it that a very small country like Holland, with only 16 million people, and not a rich country necessarily, why is it that they, year in, year out, do deliver top talent and top teams?
I have no idea on that. It's definitely intriguing as far as thinking about why aren't we developing the top talent? And I'll give you an example. Just being a native here, Sean McDonald, one of the top athletes ever to play soccer, won a state title at Shadow Mountain High School with my brother, and he played for SC Del Sol or Shamrocks back in the day, whatever it was called back then. And he, instead of doing soccer, because there was like no options for him, he did 9 years in the NFL. There's Joel Sangwa, who's an African refugee that was just living across the street from Cortez High School, didn't play club at all. We found him somehow because Jose Corona, the head coach of Cortez, said, "Hey, there's this baller at my school. He's not playing high school. He just plays for African leagues here. We find him, we grab him, and he plays here in 2019, becomes a player of the year, and now he starts for Akron University as a center back. There's a lot of those players out here, but who's going after him? U.S. Soccer doesn't. They don't like try to really identify these kids. They're strictly on who's the academy coaches and clubs. We're gonna pick from them and have them develop the talent, which they're not. They don't have the resources or the funding, or they don't allocate the funding to be able to really go find those players and put them together. I'm hopeful that U.S. Soccer will get their act together and create a true state team where they go after the best talent.
Yeah, and it's not just the clubs that charge quite a bit, but it's also if you want to try out for ODP for the USSF. I don't know what it costs a family right now, but I remember about 10, 15 years ago, if you didn't have $1,000 to fork up, you could not. You could try out for ODP, but if you made the team and you have to start investing in travel and hotel and whatnot, then it's not for everybody, unfortunately.
No, the ODP is kind of one of my biggest problems I have in Arizona. Anyways, I made the ODP team, and it was a big deal. Got the letter and everything. It was such a big deal. I was 13 at the time, and my family's very excited. They're like, "Okay, we need this amount of dollars, and we can afford it." I remember my mom wrote a letter to my family trying to secure funds, doing whatever she could to get the funding to help me go to be on the regional team. Because I was selected, I made the state team, and then I made the regional team. Luckily, the ODP that year when I made it, everything was here local, so I didn't have to go anywhere. But I made the regional pool, and I'm like, oh, this is the pathway to make the national team. I was so excited, and then it was like, I don't remember the dollar. It seemed like it was like $1,200, but back then in 1989, that was like $4,000, $5,000 today. And I remember trying to secure money from family, and we weren't able to secure enough or whatever it might have been. But to put the stress on my poor mother and my family, and everyone trying to contribute, but no one really could contribute. It messed me up for a little bit and drew a very dislike for ODP because of that one experience.
Yeah, I still have the letters actually when I was invited to the Dutch youth national team. So you got under 15, then under 17. It's a huge honor, right? You see the KNVB logo on there. But again, you got scouted by those scouts of the Dutch Soccer Federation. Then you get invited to first try out and then eventually play for your Holland is divided in provinces. So first you make your province team, then South Holland. And when I was 16, I was in the best 40 players in the whole country. But my parents never had to pay a single dollar, Dave. Not a single dollar.
That's
for the Dutch equivalent of ODP.
Because it matters over there, and for whatever reason, it didn't matter early on, and now the game does matter a lot more, and we still haven't got out of those old patterns of finding players. We have a question or a comment actually from Andreas. He says ODP was designed for extra training, hence development in the name, and for scouting state players, yet all they do is scrimmage for most of the time. So
I heard the same thing. Actually, I worked ODP, so I can only confirm that.
Yeah, and then Gary Funk says USA high schools put money into NFL and baseball before soccer. High school fund football and baseball, and kids can be recruited from high school to play pro leagues. High school soccer is not the path to pro. And then Andreas goes on to say, whichever club fuels the most players that pay for ODP usually gets most of the players selected by these clubs, which I don't know.
Well, yes, I got a quick story there. There's definitely politics involved. I remember I moved here in 97, and in 98, I coached ODP. I think it was the 82 boys. And I remember, so you get hundreds of kids that you got to make a decision on within, 2 hours, which is already close to impossible task, if you ask me. But I just went, because I didn't know anybody, I just picked what I thought was the best 20 players. Well, guess what? I got a call the next day from the ODP head guy then, he goes, "Why didn't you pick that player? He's been the leading top scorer for Sereno, it was back then. Remember Sereno?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, I don't know about reputations, but what I saw from him, I wasn't impressed. Well, you might want to take another look at him. And if there's one thing I regret right now is that, how old was I? I was probably in my mid to late 20s. And I was kind of talked, manhandled into picking him up after all. So yes, politics plays a role. I would never do that now, by the way.
And big time. I actually was fired from ODP.
How so?
By not being rehired, I guess. So I did ODP, and I was coaching the 94 team, age group. I think it was 94. Anyways, a long time ago. And I took the team to Oregon to campaign against other teams over there. And I was training the kids. I was trying to teach them as much technique as possible. And I was talking to them quite a bit as a team. And I told them what a scam a lot of the clubs are, like far as you're paying for this. And what you need to pay attention to is develop technique, play as much soccer as possible, multiple teams. All the things I talk about today about, finding more opportunity to play with older teams, embrace the game. Sure. In a way like it's done everywhere else. And the manager that was with us, like, I don't remember a club or anything like that, but obviously I had a lot of big clubs there. And he complained to the club coaches who went to the state, say, "Hey, Dave Cameron's telling them to go play on multiple teams and stuff," which is illegal, I guess, which is so weird. As far as development goes, I was encouraging them to play more. You can't just rely on your club team to develop it. You have to develop. You need to watch the game. You need to train extra. You need to find opportunities to improve. And I got pretty much let go from stating how to get better in soccer.
Well, you're obviously right when you say that. So street soccer, right, as it is in, let's say, South America or Europe, sorry to go back to those two continents all the time, but I think those are the only two continents that have delivered world champs, correct?
Yep.
So those kids in Rio and Madrid and Amsterdam, those kids play, well, without over-exaggeration, 3-4 hours every single day on the street.
Oh, yeah.
So how are you going to compete with that and think that in Arizona you come to team training 2 or 3 times per week? So in other words, what you put in a week, a kid in Amsterdam puts in a day. Now that adds up real quickly over 2-3 years, right? So what you were preaching was right. You got to get as many touches on the ball as possible on the soccer field, organized, but also unorganized. Pick up games, the street, the playground, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. To prove the point, and so at Phoenix College, where I coach, is heavy Hispanic, and the kids I have, they play all the time. They're in 6v6 Sunday league. They play so much soccer, especially the group of kids I have. They're on 3-4 different 6v6 teams, an indoor team. They're playing 11v11. They play way too much, for someone that's trying to develop a college team. So it's spring ball. And we're going to play Grand Canyon University. And this is right before COVID hit. So this is February 2020, before the shutdown. And we didn't really have a place to practice here because all the fields were turning to rye. The grass, we were late in planting our grass, so we couldn't play. So we could lift weights, run on the track, and play some futsal. That's about it. But I kept telling our guys, I'm like, we're going to go smash GCU. And I was telling them why, because I was trying to indoctrinate them in a way, understanding how good they are. I'm like, you guys have played more soccer, more matches. You watch the game more than everyone at GCU, by far. They're and I kept telling them kind of like they have the comfort of sleep. They get protein shakes, all this stuff. They have all these things, and I was just trying to convince them we're going to go whoop on them because you guys have thousands upon thousands of hours of playing street soccer, 6v6. They just play, and that amount of repetition does matter. So we go play GCU, and it's just me and Carmen Esnall. That's all we had at coaching staff. And it was Shellis was the coach at the time. Vladimir, who was the coach here at PC, he was on that staff, and they got like $500,000 staff, and they're whatever. They're just very organized and all that. And my pre talk to them was just be you and good luck. And I didn't say another word. We go up, we're 2-0 at halftime. We have the ball the whole time, just like embarrassing them. I was getting nervous because Shellis was very upset, yelling at the referee, and I'm like, this could be 4-5-0. Like we were punishing them. Anyways, the game ends 2-2. We had a red card, but we proved the point. And we had a lot of fans in the stadium like, we didn't know you guys are that good. I'm like, yeah, we're that good. And we can compete with Division I. But the point being was there was a disconnect with my players not understanding how good they were. And it happens with youth too. Oh, you're not part of MLS Next. Therefore, I'm not good enough or whatever overall label. That means nothing. It's about opportunity in real games to be able to make decisions and have success, have failure, and be able to take that and elevate it. That's why I think it's important, especially someone like yourself that coaches in such a way that you teach the game in such a way that they're developing. Development can happen anywhere. I think a name, a title, confuses a lot of families and kids about how good they really can be.
Agreed.
So, what are your thoughts on this? So, how do you balance the focus on winning with the importance of players' development and skill building?
Did we skip a question there, or do you just want to go to that one right away?
Well, we can go up. Want to do that second question?
Yeah, real quick, because that's only 2-3 sentences.
Yeah. So how do you work to ensure that your program is accessible to kids from a variety of backgrounds and socioeconomic levels?
Yeah, so one of the things at Batavia that I'm personally very proud of is actually the word socioeconomic is in our mission statement. We do not want any kid to be denied the Batavia experience just because their parents cannot afford it. Now, having said that, obviously, I do make a living doing this, so I don't want to come across as a hypocrite. And the club itself, a nonprofit, has to operate in the black, right? If you scholarship 175 players, then sooner or later you're going to run into the red. But if a family really cannot afford it, then we do ask for proof. So we ask for like tax returns or pay stubs or something. But if it really is obvious that a kid is good enough and wants to play, but their parents cannot afford it, then we are one of the clubs that actually do give a scholarship or at least a huge discount. Sometimes in return, we do ask the parents to volunteer for the club, right? Let's say hanging up the nets, lining the fields, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what we do. We do help out the families in need.
Well, I remember when I grew up playing, I played with the Shamrocks, and I know there were some families helping us because I came from a very lower middle class home where we didn't have, and 4 boys in the home and stuff. It's hard to spread out the wealth within all the kids that want to do stuff. There's a lot of families that helped us out. We were really appreciative of the club and whatnot. But the coaches back then really spearheaded that. Yes, I was talented. I was helping them with victories and whatnot. But they really came together to ensure that that they could help families like my family. And I was very appreciative of that. And I think that had a lot with parent engagement. Today, and this is a different question, today with some clubs, and I don't know the inner workings of your club, I'm not in your club, but how do you get the parent to be involved in such a way that they're willing to help the community, to help donate, help give time to help those that don't have enough? I think there's a disconnect with some clubs. It's like, this is a club, you pay in the system, we do it, we got it, stay out, we got it, just give us your fees, versus a more of a community approach. How's your club a bit different?
I'm glad you asked that question. So We do not keep the parents at arm length away. Now, obviously, you got to set boundaries, right? We don't want a parent right after an emotional game to approach somebody and start talking to coach about why little Johnny plays left back instead of right wing, or why they got only 7 minutes of playing time. That's all the coach's discretion. But we are a family-oriented, community-based club. I think to answer your question, by simply continue to talk about it, by being passionate about it and not be shy to show that passion, the families that are in our club, and we have been growing for the last 4 or 5 years, year after year, is because they start buying into it. They really see what we stand for, and maybe even more importantly, what we do not stand for. And the families that leave Batavia to go to another club for X, Y, or Z reason, well, maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Maybe we cannot be all things to all people. And I know we are a family. You hear that all the time, but yeah, at Batavia we really are. The parents are involved. For example, each team has their team manager, which is a volunteer parent. They don't get paid, but they passionately donate their time to help the team. Then you got a team treasurer. You got somebody who does the books, the paperwork. I think that's how you do it. You're just passionate about what you do, and the people who buy into it, great. And the people who don't buy into it, that's also fine. We understand there are other options in the valley.
There's a lot of parents that they're different as far as their understanding of things. And I'm a big believer in educating the parents the best that you can as far as this is my philosophy. This is how we coach. This is why we say what we say. This is why we allow certain things to happen as far as allowing failure and really trying to discover a true learning model where kids can fail to have success. How do you feel about parent education, especially during game time? I'm a fan of keeping the parents really close by so I can hear what they're saying. They can hear what I'm saying. What are your thoughts on parents on the opposite side versus being on the same side when you're coaching? Do you feel like there's an opportunity for growth within your parents, or what are your thoughts on educating your parents, whether it's at games,
well, first of all,
into meetings or whatnot?
Yeah. So first of all, we as Batavia coaches have nothing to hide. I think as a parent, it would be a red flag for me if I had my kid play for somebody who said, okay, I got to talk to my team. You guys stay over there. I'm going to take my team here into this quiet corner so people cannot hear what I have to tell the kids. I don't know. There's a little bit of a red flag for me, because what do you have to hide, kind of thing, right? Now, having said that, on the sideline, parents cheering on their kids, great. Good kick, Johnny. Good run, Susie. That's all fine. But when they start coaching during the game, especially when they start telling the player on the ball what they should do, pass, shoot, dribble, that's why I draw the line. And I got to tone them down. It's also in their contract that they sign at the beginning of the year that there will be no coaching from the sideline. And believe it or not, just the last 2 years, unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to a couple of dads who could not contain themselves, who thought they knew better, who was mingling in, who almost sometimes was contradicting what the coach was telling their kids. And that's an absolute no-no. That's unacceptable. As far as which sideline they're on, as you know, each tournament, each league does it differently. You don't have much say into that, but I do not mind at all that our parents from our teams sit 3-4 yards behind the bench. Again, we have nothing to hide.
There's another comment, or actually a question from Gary Fung. He says, why are coaches joysticking talent ID showcases that college scouts and coaches are viewing? At the showcase, I would think we should allow the players that are selected to play and think on their own.
Amen. Who asked that question?
Gary Fung.
Gary Fung?
Fung. Yeah, I think it's a I don't know, surname or kind of like incognito.
Pseudonym.
Yeah, so.
Well, I know why they joystick coach. If you joystick coach, you're thinking long term. You want to win this game, right?
Yeah.
Shoot now, and guess what? If your team wins 2-1, you feel like a great coach. Well, sorry, but that's absolutely wrong. You're better off losing a game, sitting back a bit, let the kids decide for themselves. Because if there's one thing about soccer compared to, let's say, American football, is that soccer is a player's game. They make the decisions. Every time they get the ball, they got to decide, do I trap, do I dribble, do I shoot? And how they're going to learn when coach is in the ear non-stop. Now, guilty myself, right? You have these intense games where it's, let's say, a tournament final and it's 0-0, then it's very tempting, even for myself after 25 years, to not coach to win the game. But I would say 89% of the time, you got to let the players figure it out, because how else are they going to learn?
Well, it's supposed to be a test. And by the way, Gary Fung is Chinese.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so Gary Fung's always on my show, always commenting.
I love it.
I love Gary Fung.
Yeah, if you joystick coach every single game, you're gonna maybe win games, but you're gonna turn kids into robots. And when they have to play college or pro, they will never make it because they're relying on coach telling them what to do.
Yeah, and I think that goes to some questions we had about burnout. If you're always being told what to do and you're always hearing comments about what you should have done and all these other things, you're going to burn out. It's not fun to be someone in your ear all the time.
Yeah, it takes the fun away too, right?
Yeah.
But part of the fun of soccer is that you make your own decisions, and sometimes they're wrong, but if you do something right, that is fantastic.
Yeah, well, let's move on to our next question. I believe it's, where are we? Is it how do you balance the focus on winning with the importance of player development and skill building?
Yeah, also a great question. I think it depends on age and level of the team. At the very youngest ages, coaches should not talk about winning, like whatsoever. If I see coaches yell at their kids when they're 7 and 8-year-olds, that is so detrimental. That's when kids get burned out and they quit the game altogether. Now, having said that, at one point you got to prepare them for the higher levels, like college and pro, and at that level it is about one thing and one thing only: winning. So as kids and teams get older, we start shifting more and more to talk about winning, but also how do you win, the technical and tactical parts of the game, instead of emotionally just trying to win every single game. I think it's a long-term vision. And then when they turn 16, 17, 18, then the word winning has to become more and more part of your vocabulary.
Yeah, and Andreas says we lack creative players because of remote control coaches.
Amen.
Yeah, and the focus of winning. And we actually talked about this earlier today. We talked about a points league that I've done a points league, a points tournament or whatever. So like just changing the game and creating value for successes on the field, like intelligent successes, thought out successes where you see your teammate, you make a pass and you're rewarded with it. So I've been working on this for a while, and I've tried it in Pond Valley Soccer League or the Hammers League. I did a rec league where we had people turning over points, with just manually. But now we can go do it in our gym here doing futsal. We can do it at Bellbank now, where we can reward points. And this is what I would suggest that we do just to try it out. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are. If you think it'd be successful, you, the viewer, if you think this might be successful. And I have other podcasts talking about this, where you create a value for every pass that you connect to your team. In your defensive half, you get 1 point, and just point. And then when you make successful passes in the attacking half, you get 2 points. And then if you score a goal, only 1, but you get the ball back. So you can keep adding points to it and have a complete game. So every pass matters. Every thought matters. You look up, there's my team, I want to play it to my team, and expand from there. And you can always change the points, depending where the levels are and how you can really get the players to get to the next level. What are your thoughts about a points tournament, or any thoughts on how you would do points to advance the game in youth?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great initiative. I think there's a TED talk about that. I forget who ran it. I can probably look it up, but there's a TED talk about a soccer coach who talks about exactly that. I think especially the youngest and middle ages, I think that would be a good idea, because now we're talking about possession and passing the ball, which is obviously huge at the highest levels. My only concern, Dave, would be, do players then start to pass for passing's sake? Play back to their keeper, to the left back, swing it around the horn in the back, just to keep it, and score points and points, but not really advance down the field. I don't have the answer, but that would be my only concern, that teams and players will start passing for passing's sake, instead of the purpose of a pass should be to eventually progress down the field and score a goal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it's you got to start somewhere, right? So
yes.
you change
That's
it.
why I said at the youngest age, I think it's great. A completed pass at 6-7-year-olds should be more important than scoring a lucky goal, or putting your tallest, fastest, most aggressive kid on top. Tell all your teammates, like that movie, Kicking and Screaming, just kick it to the Italians, right? kick it to the big guy on guard, make a foot race out of it, score a goal, win a game, and think you're on the right track.
Yeah, I just don't know another way. I don't. It's hard to control the people. And when I did this points league in the Hammers organization a long time ago, and I kid you not, I had one crazy parent would always scream at his kid, go forward, go forward. He said, kid you not, I had just like, and I've said this a lot of times, I always tell this story. He was yelling at his daughter to go backwards to the keeper, because we had it. We set up points where if you got the ball back to the keeper and then connected pass to get past half field, you got like 8 more points, and we went crazy with it. But it's hard to control parents. I mean, you run in situations, you just have to remove the parents from your club. There's a lot of them, and it's hard unless all the coaches in the clubs get together and say, let's get together, let's do this right.
Or you pull the Louis Dabo trick where you
sub them out to his parent.
You sub the kid out and you say, hey, your dad wants to talk to you.
Yeah. So I don't know what the solution, but we got to do something.
Well, how about this? I mean, I'm thinking out loud, really thinking out loud, so I could be way off, but would a pass forward maybe be 2 points, and a pass square and backwards only 1 point? So now you do reward passing, but you do also stimulate going forward down the field. Something like that.
No, that's great. I learned, I actually used to do that just to rape my college kids. Took way too much time. Drew Granari actually told me about it.
Yeah, I know.
Mesa College. I was just asking, I was picking his brain, and he was like, yeah, I rank all my players after a game. He'll watch the film, and then he'll record every time they pass the ball forward, every time they did backwards, every time they forward, he gave a point. Every time players pass the ball square or backwards, 0. But if you lost it, like on a bad pass, -1, and then he created a value.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
as long as people don't, like that you mentioned earlier, as long as we don't start passing it back to the goalkeeper, again, for passing's sake, you pass it back to your keeper when the soccer situation asks for it, right? You get pressure from the opponent, you cannot go forward. Then I would say, instead of just launching a long ball forward, pass it back to your keeper. But if you got the ball as a central defender and you don't have pressure and you turn around to pass it back just to score that point, that's not really what we're after.
Kind of silly. Gary Funk says, yeah, true. We cannot pass without purpose just to keep passing around the field like the Spain national team did in the World Cup in 2022. LOL. Yeah. Yeah,
but Spain did do the tiki-taki, what? They won 3 big tournaments in a row, right?
Yeah.
08, 10, and 12.
Yeah, it could serve a purpose. I just think we got to do something different with development. We have to try to do something, especially U8, U10, U12. We can get them connecting passes and be more comfortable with the ball. Good things could happen from that. So the next question is, let's see, is it how do you support and develop your coaches? Yeah, how do you support and develop your coaches to ensure that they are providing the best possible experience for their players? And you're a director, so how do you direct your coaches?
Yeah, it's a toolbox you've got as director of coaching to educate your coaches. I'll be honest with you, I should have more coaches meeting, but we do meet with the coaches either in person or virtually, and then we talk about the technical curriculum, the tactical curriculum, incidents that have happened in the last month, and how we were to deal with that. So that's let's call it internal education. But then we're also big on having our coaches licensed. And I know that is a debatable topic, and there's just as many people who are against it as they are for it. But I just finished my B, and I have to say, I feel like I'm a better coach than I was 6 months ago. Maybe not because I learned a lot about the game, but about structuring your session, looking at the big picture, so kind of planning out a whole season instead of reacting on what happened this Saturday. Let's say you lose a game because you got beat, I don't know, with balls over the top. A lot of coaches then short-term thinking go, okay, the next week I got to work on that. And then that Saturday game is another topic that sticks out, and you're going to work on that next week. I think it's a bit of hop, skip, jump training and coaching. I think you're better off laying out a whole curriculum for the year, or actually multiple years, and then stick with that regardless of how the game goes this Saturday. And that's what we've been trying to teach our coaches. And of course, being Dutch, I'm huge on the technique, especially at the youngest ages. I assume you've heard of the curver coaching method. Yep. I know it's got pros and cons, but I'm a big believer at the youngest ages that they got to learn how to dribble, ball mastery, changing direction. And all the coaches we have believe in that. And another thing I've been doing, I don't know if this falls under education, but more than half of the coaching staff are players that I used to coach myself. And so now they're adults, they're back, they want to give back to the game. And it saves me teaching them because they already know the way I operate. I really like that. When former players get involved in your coaching staff when they turn 18 or even older.
You're getting old, mate.
Hey, thanks for rubbing it in. I just hit the big 5-0 this year, my friend.
Oh my gosh. How dare you?
I know.
I don't know if I can hang out with you anymore.
Nope.
I don't know. Do you ever forget your age?
No.
Like,
I
do.
You
so,
do?
Yeah. The best birthday gift my wife gave me was reminding me how old I really was. I thought I was 48. I swore I was 48.
No, come on.
And she's like, no, you're 47. I'm like, I just got a year. I felt like I got a year.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. But yeah, that's licensing. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the cost. I think it needs to be more available to everybody so we can, especially in the communities that can't get licensing. And we've used licensing to criminalize clubs. Oh, your teams are good, like Tuzos. Oh, they're good. But you know what? You don't have 7A licensed coaches in your club. You cannot play in this league.
Oh, it goes a step further. They dictated now if you don't have a C license, US Soccer C, that you cannot coach your team in state league anymore. Can you believe it?
Then make it available. That's my problem. It's expensive.
It is. Depends on what level, right? The youngest grassroots and all. That's very doable. But once you get to the C and above, then we're talking thousands of dollars. So as a club, Batavia has decided, okay, if we want our coaches to get educated, then we also have got to pay up. So we do reimburse them. Of course, we ask them to promise to stay with the club at least 2-3 years. But it's not just the knowledge you get from the courses. It's also the interacting with the other coaches. One thing I liked about the B I just did was the networking. You run into other coaches. You hear their ideas. How do they run a club? How do they educate their coaches? That's the exciting
Did
part.
you go to the convention?
The USC? No, I did not.
So the convention was in Philly. And
talking about United Soccer coaches.
Yeah. It was a blast. I love the convention. I've only been twice. But yeah, the networking, meeting people and picking specific classes that you would like to participate. There's so many good. I don't like watching like the tactical sessions and the field work, but in rooms where you get to hear from these doctors of their industry. There's one of the best speakers at the convention was the sports director for England, sporting director for all sports. So he was helping develop good coaching in rugby, soccer. He oversaw it all, and he was so brilliant. I was just like, I'm buying the video. Like I didn't want to write down every little detail. I just want to take it in. And there's so many good coaches out there, but good information. But I don't think it needs to be hidden as much. And it needs to be more accessible, especially for those clubs that are doing well. And maybe that's what U.S. Soccer does. Maybe they're like, oh, this club's like developing teams or talent. They're coming from them. Let's award them with, all right, you guys get a credit towards educating your
That
people.
would be awesome. Just don't hold your breath of that happening anytime soon.
No, because it's a pathway for more people to make money that don't coach. And that's what bugs me. A lot of the people that are part of the educational system, that writing the books and develop the curriculum, are in the trenches with us.
Yeah. You know what I really learned at that course? They call it periodization, right? The labor-rest ratio. In 25 years, I don't want to call it winging it, because obviously I got experience in the game. I just watched the players' body language, and I knew when to push, when to back off a little bit. But apparently there's a whole science behind it. You know, when you have let's say you got a double header, Saturday game, Sunday game, then it's very important what you do and what you do not do that following Monday, Tuesday, to prepare for the next game. So that whole science behind it, if it's got to be a 50% workload session, or a recovery session, or a fitness session, which is at 90% of your workload and 100% is the game itself. Yeah, I learned an awful lot from that. The theory, the science, instead of just winging it.
Yeah, that's you're getting into like with the breakdowns of recovery and time frames between a game and all that. That was used here quite a bit by Coach V. And it's definitely a good model, especially if you have control of where they're sleeping, diet, all those things at the professional college level. But nothing will ever trade out talent. Like and talent is developed not by you or I. We can manage that talent and elevate that talent. It's their drive at home. Where they watch the game. You can't get them to go watch the game. You can't get them to watch Champions League and stuff like that. You can facilitate it a little bit. You can motivate a little bit, but they're home. I think parents are so valuable to their children in indoctrinating, as bad that might sound, their kids in the game.
Yeah. I remember you invited Tom 2-3 years ago. That soccer starts at home or something.
Oh, Tom Byer.
Tom Byer. I went to that lecture that he did. Mm-hmm. That's important that parents stimulate and encourage their kids to take that ball into the backyard. Very important. And watch soccer games in it. Sorry, yes. Real quick. Out of 100 kids, how many do you think youth soccer players in Arizona, out of 100, how many watch pro soccer every week, you think? Give me a percentage.
In America?
No, here in Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona? Like club kids?
Yeah, club kids.
10%.
Yes. So 90% cannot be bothered. Yeah. Or they don't enjoy it. So that's a big one, because I dare say it's not just entertaining to watch Liverpool against whatever, but it's also educational.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I'm not a big soccer fan as much as my son, but I knew what I was doing. I was all sport. That's just the way I grew up. My son, and I encourage you to do this too, and tell your families to do this if they're able, is one thing I did really good about indoctrinating my kid into the game. I would take my kids out of school during Champions League semis and go to Georgian Dragon. Dad's picking us up. He's taking us out of school, and we're at a sports bar with a bunch of crazies eating fish and chips. They'll remember it forever.
Oh yeah, they will.
It's like Christmas.
They might have to take the second grade twice, but hey,
that's okay.
Never gonna forget that.
All parents should do that. In a Champions League semis, can't do finals because that's a Saturday, but it'll be a Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. You can watch. Or they both played the same day, I think, on a Wednesday, or maybe it's 2 days. But take your kids out of school.
Yeah. Good. Well, we just had the World Cup. Maybe the 10% jumps to, I don't know, 25%. But it's still it's not enough. They gotta live, eat, and breathe the game if they really want to succeed.
Andreas says, invisible training is the most important training for youth development. We as coaches are catalysts. We can discover, enhance, stimulate, elevate, but the invisible training is the deal breaker. It goes on to say, this includes watching the game at the highest level, street soccer, playing more games without burning them out. Facts. Yep.
Agreed.
It is a process, and I think parents, community, we are a big catalyst, as Andreas was saying, about developing our kids to be to love the game forever. Like my daughter Dakota, who she went to Seattle U, she played there a couple of years, quit. Just a lot of factors, but she still plays. She's playing in the Neon League we were talking about.
Oh, right.
So she'll be coming out April 1st and 2nd to be part of that reality show. But she still plays. She plays futsal. She loves the game. Yeah. And I did my job. Our job's not to create professional players or Division I. We just teach them to love the game. Whatever else happens. But if we can get our kids, the ones that we have stewardship over, or whatever you want to call it, and they learn to love the game,
then you've done your job.
We did it.
Yeah,
that's all we have to do.
Yeah, because how many kids have you seen over the years, Dave, that were super talented, great athletes, but they were pushed so hard at such an early age, and by the time they're 12, 13, they go, nah, I don't like it anymore, Mom, Dad, I'm going to quit.
So many.
Countless.
So many, especially on the girl side.
Is that right? Yeah, I think you're right.
Just from my experience, there's so many top talented girls that just they find a way out. Division I scholarship players quit. I see it time and time again. And I think, well, of my opinion, watching the girls' game, it just seems very violent. And you hear a lot of go through her, get stuck in, because they want to win so bad, and they think by being aggressive. And in the girls' game, you may see that the technique is lacking a little bit more on the girls' side than the boys' side. I don't know why that is. I don't know why the national teams are so different. But out there in Arizona anyways, I see the girls' game is very, very violent, and it's number 2 of all sports in concussions. So explain me that. That's violence. So number 2, number 1's football. Number 2 is girls soccer. Boys soccer, way down the list.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
That's facts. And why? Why is it so violent? Why there's so many collisions, and why so many coaches saying, get a body on her, get stuck in, go through her?
Well, again, the emphasis on winning. Let them play. There's an American term that we don't have in the Dutch language. It's called to live vicariously through somebody. I think some of these coaches, some of the youth coaches get so much pressure on winning that they, again, coach to win this game, and they forget the bigger picture, the long-term vision. And if their team wins, then he's a better coach. That kind of misthinking is going on.
Andreas says, here in Chicago, it started U14 for boys and U15 for girls. David, you are right. Parents want to help girls to be tougher, so the words they use is not correct. This is why ACL concussions occur. And Gary Funk says, yep, those are facts. I didn't think about that. Girls kind of got to be tough. You got to be stronger kind of mentality to push them through it. But isn't it child abuse?
Yeah, it depends on your definition, but it's definitely bordering on it.
Yeah. ACL injuries and stuff. And to knock on wood, and I got to stop saying this, but I've coached girls soccer for a long time, 96 Hammers.
Yeah, we played each other.
Yeah. And I've been coaching girls soccer for a very long time, even though I'm the men's soccer coach here at PC. But not one ACL injury ever.
That's unheard of. That's the very rare exception.
I always told my girls, stay on 2 feet, and I don't overdo it. I think the way you waste energy of going forward, and I'm lucky too. I'm sure there's a lot of luck involved, but slowing the game down, not trying to run with teams you can't run with, just.
Well, put yourself in the shoes of a coach that, let's say hypothetically, doesn't have the technical or tactical knowledge to give to their kids. So what do you go to automatically then is athleticism and aggression.
Yep.
Yeah.
Removing time and space through aggression, which wins. It does win.
It's a very important part of the game. And by the way, at the oldest and the highest levels, that desire and will to win is the difference between, making it to the pros or not making it. But first you got to get your technical and tactical baggage in.
Yeah. Well, let's finish a couple of these more questions. Do we want to take that? How do you measure success in your youth soccer program beyond just wins and losses? I think.
Yeah, I love that question.
Let's do that one.
I think you said it earlier, Dave. If you install a lifelong passion for the game, that is already success, right? Now a kid has a hobby for life. Now a kid has a vehicle for life, like to learn life lessons, like, again, teamwork, leadership, communication, self-discipline. I think that's a big measure of success. And then, of course, eventually, if you see a kids grow, get more comfortable on the ball, you see that confidence grow. I go back to one of our 08 players. Shout out to Rory Crossman here. He is working on this escalator trap, a ball falling out of the sky, like a goalie's pond, and to just trap it on top of your toes and bring it down.
Right.
So we're working on that for weeks, and the ball is jumping left, right, and he cannot get it under control. And he did it once at the last practice before a game. I said, so Saturday at the game, if this happens, instead of just letting it hit your body, as you sometimes see, people just standing still, letting it hit. He goes, I tell him, let's just try it. Even if you lose it, no big deal. The guy pulls it off. I said, that's what we worked on, Rory. No, the guy grew literally 3 inches. Like, look at me.
Like me, yeah.
That's success.
Oh, total success. What's interesting about I think coaches that are like futuristic, like paying attention not for instant gratification, just for later gratification, like you mentioned at the beginning, like someone come back to you and remembering you as a coach. If you want to have a long-lasting effect, you put in the work and time and restraint to allow successes to happen through a lot of failure, like you were just mentioning. I think if coaches could think the long terms of how you can affect not only that individual's life, you can affect the community, the team, and all these greater things other than yourself, and removing the ego out of it and really focus on what really matters for this individual. They want to feel like they're successful, and you can give them that pathway, allowing failure, allowing repetition that makes sense, where they can have that experience in a game in that one moment. How cool was that? To recognize that.
He's never going to forget that.
Yeah.
And that also means that he now knows that if he puts his time in and he's dedicated to acquiring a certain skill, which, I don't know, can be a different language or a musical instrument, it doesn't really matter what, that he knows that he can achieve that. That is, again, that's success.
Absolutely. So next question, what advice would you give to parents who are not or who are new to youth soccer and looking to get involved with their child's team?
Research. Don't go on names, reputation. Really know, see a coach in action before you have your kids sign up with somebody, for example. Are they encouraging? Are they positive? Or is it a yeller on the sideline who's joystick coaching and just, berating their kids, which unfortunately I still see every single weekend. If you hear some of the language, it's cringe-worthy. And then, of course, very important that parents look for technical development at the youngest ages. When you say new to soccer, I assume the kid is what, 5, 6 year olds? That kind of parent?
Sure.
Technique. If you see a coach working on strength and conditioning or corner kicks at the age of 6 or 7, huge red flag for me. I would walk away in a hurry. I would want my kid to be exposed to a coach who works 90% of the time on building technical skills, dribbling, passing, shooting, first touch, turning, all that good stuff.
And I would say to new parents of the game, you can be very involved by being very silent and taking notes. So I would just track your child. How much time are they on the field? I would record it, so you're involved that way. And I would record how many touches they have on the ball, how many times they pass the ball forward, how many times they pass the ball backwards, how many takeaways they have, just little things that you can just keep math of and record. And then over time, you can see changes of their performance. And that'll allow you to continue to decide, do I want to stay with this coach or this club, or do I want to move somewhere else where their successes are going up, or opportunities on the ball are going up, or time on the field going up, especially at younger ages. You can be involved simply by math versus being vocal, trying to solve it right away, but having a more prolonged approach where you're getting data over time and giving opportunities.
Amen to that. I think it's also the sign of the times a little bit, that instant gratification that people want nowadays. I mean, it must feel good to win this coming Saturday. I get it. But isn't it more important where a player can be 5 years from now if you properly develop them? Delayed gratification is much more solid, much more substantial than luckily winning a game this coming Saturday because coach is joysticking, for example.
And the thing, you don't even have to be new to the game. Like, you could just be new to the parent side. Like, when I went from coaching to a parent, and I'm a college coach, no, I'm a parent, and I was just taking notes. And I remember my son, he's playing for Tuzos at the time, and we're playing whomever, and I'm just taking notes. And my son at the time would not defend. He wouldn't get any ball. He loved it on his feet, but he wasn't competing defensively. So I did takeaways and takeaway assists. I did takeaways where it was solo, and then assists where he was 5 yards around the ball as the opposition lost the ball and someone else got it. So a takeaway assist. And then I recorded someone that I noticed that was really good, Nathaniel, who 7, 8 solo takeaways and like 10 takeaway assists. He was all over the place. And I showed my son, here's Nathaniel, here's you. You have 0. He has 9. You see a problem?
That's always the next level.
The next game, he was like everywhere defending. It was different because he knew the math. And I would show him, that was much better, son.
Yeah.
So even as a parents can be very valuable.
But you discussed that with him after game, not yelling during the game, right?
Never.
So
I would never want to do that to
I got twin
coach.
boys myself, and I was their coach for club. But then they went to high school, so I went to visit and watched a few of the high school games. Do you think I said anything during the game to those boys?
I hope not.
0. I've seen a video clip even from when Suarez and Messi was still at Barcelona. They had their own kids playing for the youth academy there, and they're just sitting there, zilch. So if Messi and Luis Suarez say nothing to the coach or to their kid during a game, then maybe some other parents should take note.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, it's gone late, and I apologize for this podcast as far as we lost connection. My bad, but we learned. We had luckily I had another battery connector, but and I'll patch this all together. And thank you so much for, we still have 6 viewers right now this late night. Thank you so much for coming back and being part of this podcast. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you coming on. Was it your 5th time on the show? 6?
I lose track. I really don't know. It seems about right. 4 or 5.
I thank you so much for being part of this podcast. But how can we find out more about you, and where can we learn more about FC Batavia?
Yeah, I mean, good time actually to come to get together, right? Because as you know, it is middle of March right now. So guess what's happening?
Tryouts.
Club tryouts are around the corner. So people who kind of liked what I spoke about, please visit us, fcbatavia.com, fcbatavia.com, or just Google me. My name is Rick Tilmans, Ricktilmans, and just reach out. We are in North Phoenix, very close to the Reach 11 soccer fields for people who are in Arizona and wonder where we are. And again, if they're looking for a balanced approach where coaches are very serious about soccer, but still understand that kids have a life, so not the either extreme of the 3 categories of clubs that I gave very early on, then come check us out.
All right. Well, I'll definitely put all your information in our subject notes and everything. And thank you, Gary Fung.
Thank you. Good questions, by the way.
Yeah.
From the listeners.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back next Sunday, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And thanks for Bots Guy for being involved. And 4K for Life is back. Thank you for being part of this show. And be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And hit the notification bell if you want to know when we're on, especially when the live goes off. And you can find us. So always have the notification bell on so you know when we're live. And we'll see you next Sunday, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thanks so much, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.